our sister. Okay. By name, Lauren Daniel Palmer. She is an international trainer. She's a speaker and a neuroscience coach. I'm sure most of us will be learning more about what a neuro coach is and what they do. Her work has taken her to many places, including South Africa, Singapore, Malaysia, Indonesia, the United Kingdom, Canada, and Kuwait. And her work is in her ability to authentically create healing spaces for people to reflect, renew, and heal so that they are empowered to achieve their goals with life-changing results, including glorifying God in the marketplace. So after now, the person you'll be hearing her voice is Lauren Daniel Palmer. Thank you. Please give her your undivided attention. She will do some presentation and then we can ask questions after. Thank you. Yes.
Good evening. Can you hear me?
Yes, I can hear you.
Good evening. It is a pleasure to be with you all this morning for me. And I hope that we will have an inspiring time together as we go through what it really takes to be an effective leader and also to be able to inspire and empower other people as well. So what we're going to do today, we're going to look at 12 factors that are going to help us to be more effective leaders. So as we go through each one of them, I want you to think about not just how they apply to you, but how they may also apply to the teams and the people that you lead as well. So let's get started. I'm just going to try and get my video sorted, Brother Akazi. So bear with me 1 second, all right?
Sure.
Thank I think I got it. And I'm going to be sharing my screen also. I hope.
The co-host, so you can share your screen.
Okay, fantastic. Okay, here we go. Let me know if you can see the screen. Can you see the screen?
Not yet. It indicates you have started sharing your screen, but it's still blank.
It's not showing. Okay. I don't know why that's happening. Okay, without further ado, I'm just going to proceed and hopefully I'll figure it out. But I want you to imagine, I want everybody to imagine that they are going on a journey. How many of you like to travel? If you like to travel, just either unmute yourself or type me in the chat. How many of you like to travel? Nobody likes to travel? Okay, we're getting some people in the chat. Me too much. Yes, absolutely. And is there anybody who has never been on an aeroplane? Never. Is there anybody who has never? Okay, so then I'm assuming that everybody here has been on an aeroplane at some point in time, right? And feel free to interact with me. All right. So I want you to imagine that your life, your leadership, your relationships are journeys. And in order to be effective as leaders, I want you to start thinking of it as a journey, a leadership journey. And so, just like when you're traveling, you're going somewhere, you have to prepare, right? Important to prepare. And this journey of leadership, of life, is no different from that. So, the first thing that's going to be really important as leaders is to know where you are going. All right. Number one is to know where you are going. What does that mean? What does that mean? Some of you or all of you may have read a book by an author called Stephen Covey. Has anybody read that book, The 7 Habits of Highly Effective People? If you have, you'll know in that book, he talks about one of the things that he says is that we should always begin with the end in mind. Correct?
Correct.
It's the same thing with leadership and with life. We need to know where we're going, and we need to be able to prepare ourselves for where that is going to take us. So when we think about being effective leaders, we need to know where we're going. We need to also know where we have been as well. Not just where we are going, but where we have been informs the way we do our journey, basically. So our life experiences will impact where we have been. So as we think about where we're going, I'd like you to think about where you have been in your leadership journey. How has that been? Has it been good? Has it been bad? Has it been stressful? How has that been? Have you had challenges? And if so, how have you overcome them? And what did it take for you to overcome them? So I want you to think about your journey and where you're going. Do you know where you're going? And if you don't know where you're going, it's going to be important for you to understand where you're going. And to that effect, I want you to think about Isaiah 43, verse 3, which says, "Don't be afraid. I've called you by your name, not somebody else's name, but your name. You are mine. When you're in over your head, I'll be with you. When you're in a rough water, you will not go down. When you're between a rock and a hard place, it won't be a dead end." So do not be afraid of your journey, where it's going to lead you. Just know that God is with you. He has called you by his name, and he will be with you no matter what. The second point, the second factor that's going to be important on your journey, just like any other journey that you're going on, you must be willing to pay the price. You must be willing to pay the price. If you are traveling to Paris or Nairobi, to Botswana, wherever you're going, there's going to be a price to pay, right? And as a leader, there is a price to pay also for your journey. you've got to be willing to pay it. Are you going to be willing to pay that price? And that price as a leader can come in many different ways. It can be whether you have to sacrifice your time. It can be sacrificing relationships that are not going in the same direction as you. It can be what you eat, how you look after yourself. You have to pay the price for effective leadership. It can be putting other people in front of you and their needs in front of you. That is a price that will determine how effective your leadership is. And it has been said that you must be willing to pay the price for your dreams, and the cost is never too high for an effective leader. So if you want to be fit to lead, you must be willing to pay that price for your leadership experience. And let me see, Philippians 4, verse 19, because sometimes we think, well, I can't pay that price. I can't make that sacrifice. It's too much. I just can't do it. Philippians 4, verse 19 reassures us. It says, and my God will liberally supply, fill and full your every need according to his riches in glory in Christ Jesus. So yes, there is a price to pay, and it can be a price in your personal life, a price in your professional life. You know, on that leadership journey, sometimes we are expected to do things that are not in alignment with our values. And because we choose not to do that, we have to pay a price. Sometimes it's a price of promotion. It could even cost us our job. But that's a price we need to be willing to pay. And also in our spiritual lives, are we willing to pay the price to develop our relationship with God, to serve others, and to live by the golden rule? Are we willing to pay that price? So that is factor number 2. Are you willing to pay the price? The next factor that's going to be important for effective leadership, just like traveling, you know, you go to different countries and sometimes they speak a different language to the one that you're used to, right? And you might find it helpful to learn some phrases in that language. You know, phrases to get you by, whether it's knowing how to ask for things, to order things, to travel. It's good to know the language. Now, the language for you as leaders is going to depend on where it is you're going. Where are you going? And what kind of language skills are you going to need to get to your destination? So there are things that you're going to need to learn, or linguistical things that you're going to need to learn to speak that language. Some of the things that you are going to need to learn, the languages that you're going to need to learn as an effective leader, are the language of courage. You cannot be an effective leader if you are not courageous. So you need to learn the language of courage. You need to learn the language of self-esteem if you are going to be an effective leader. You need to learn the language of building resilience. Not everything is going to go right as a leader, but you must build your language skills of resilience. The other language skill that you're going to need to learn as an effective leader is that of authenticity. You cannot effectively lead others if you are not authentic. What do I mean by that? Sometimes we wear a mask. Would you agree? We cover up what's really going on and who we really are. And maybe you've been that leader, or maybe you've worked for somebody who wears a mask, who doesn't show up as their true, authentic self. As leaders, it doesn't serve us, and it doesn't serve the people that we lead. So we need to be authentic, and we need to learn that language. We also need to learn the language of service. Being a leader does not mean that we're on some kind of pedestal and we tell everybody else what to do. No, we have to be servant leaders. And we need to learn that language of service so that we can effectively lead other people who we are working with. So language is important. Language is crucial. Not just those items that I've said, but we also need to watch what we say to ourselves, the self-talk that we have. Is it positive or is it negative? What are we telling ourselves? And we need to remember one thing here. Most of the things that we do on a subconscious level, 90%, I would say. And so the things that we say to ourselves over and over again gets embedded into our subconscious minds, and it just comes out. So if what we're saying to ourselves is negative, that's what's going to always be our language, the words that we say to ourselves. So we need to be so careful to make sure that we are that our self-talk is positive, because when our self-talk is positive, it builds our self-esteem and it builds up other people around us. Because if we're saying negative things to ourselves, guess what? We're also going to be saying negative things to other people, right? So when you speak the language of effective leadership, it opens up a whole new world for you and for your teams. Psalm 19, verse 14 tells us to let the words of our mouth and the meditation of our hearts be acceptable to God, who is our rock and our redeemer. So factor number 3 is to know the language of where you're going and to know the language of effective leadership. Factor number 4, you can be an effective leader if you travel light. If you travel light. What do we mean by traveling light? I just went to another city on Friday. I had to travel. Unfortunately, it was for a memorial service, but the same dilemma that I am usually faced with when I travel is, what do I pack? Does anybody else have that issue, or is it just me? Feel free to unmute or type in the chat, me too, or something. But this is one of the things that I do struggle with. I raise my hand. What do I pack? It is so difficult sometimes to know what to pack. You don't want to take too much, but then you think, oh my goodness, I might need this, I might need that. And before you know it, your suitcase is full, it's heavy, and you can be overweight, have excess baggage.
You're not going to like.
No.
What?
Yes,
What happens to your name?
That's okay. So it's important to consider what it is you are carrying with you, and think about why you might need to carry that thing, or why you may not need to carry that thing. So what is in your suitcase? What's in your leadership suitcase? What are you carrying around with you? So be careful that you're not carrying excess baggage on your leadership journey because it's going to weigh you down. So even though we might think we're fairly invincible as leaders, we're not, because we're all subject to the laws of science, gravity. You know, if we're trying to rise and elevate and be good, effective leaders, if we are carrying excess baggage, it's going to bring us down. We're not going to be able to rise to our optimal level if we're carrying things that we don't need to. So bear in mind and think about what you're carrying and think about why it's important to travel light. Sometimes we carry baggage from our past experiences. You know, we might be carrying baggage from experiences that we've had in the workplace ourselves, things that maybe people have said and done to us. And so when we move on to leadership positions, we might think, okay, well, now that I'm a leader, I'm going to take revenge. Revenge is something that you do not want to carry in your luggage as an effective leader. You need to let those things go. Let those things that are holding you back go and travel light. Hebrews 12 verse 1 tells us to strip off every unnecessary weight that so easily and cleverly entangles us, entangles our minds. You know, are we entangled? Are we carrying negative thoughts and emotions with us? Let's run with endurance and persistence the race that's set before us. And we need to let go of negative baggage that is not going to serve us when we travel light as leaders. There's a quote, and I think it's by somebody called Bridget Nicole, and she says, "One of the bravest decisions you will ever make is to finally let go of what is hurting your heart and your soul." Are you carrying excess baggage as a leader today? And if so, let it go. Let it go. Factor number 5 that's important to be an effective leader. Are you a leader that's checked in or checked out? When you travel, in order to get on the flight, you have to check in, right? And as an effective leader, you have to do the same. You've got to check in for your flight. You've got to check in for your responsibility as a leader. And in order to do this, you need to have some documentation with you, right? You need to have some documents with you as you travel and as you try and get onto your flight and check in. So what kind of things do you need to carry with you in order to check in on your flights? Well, usually you're going to need maybe, definitely you'll need a ticket. And so again, depending on where you go, you're going to have to make sure that you have a valid ticket to that destination. Not every ticket, not every pathway is going to get you to your destination. So you need to make sure you've got the right ticket, you've got the wherewithal to make the investment to purchase that ticket. You also have to have a valid passport to get to your destination. Now, while we may think we are just a leader in a particular company, maybe our own company, we need to understand that actually it's bigger than that. The place that we're going to is actually beyond what we can see, what we can think, or even imagine. And as Christians in the marketplace, we need to understand that we are actually passing through this life, this world, this business, this company, and our destination is heaven. We are actually citizens of heaven. So we need to make sure that our documentation is going to be acceptable for that final destination. When we're traveling, when we're checking in, they need to verify our identity, right? You can't wear a mask. If you are, you have to take it off so that they can see who you are. When you're checked in, you will understand who you are and who God says you are. And you cannot hide from yourself, and you certainly cannot hide from God. We can hide from one another, but on the journey to effective leadership, you need to be willing to do what you need to do to remove that mask and reveal your true identity so that you can check in and not be checked out. Today, there is such a thing as quiet quitting. Have you heard of that? Quiet quitting. And it's where people are physically present in the workplace, but they're actually not emotionally and intellectually present. They have checked out. They're just filling a space. They're just doing the bare minimum of what they need to do. But as effective leaders, we cannot be checked out in that way. We need to be fully checked in, fully engaged. And we also need to be that way so that our teams can also be checked in and can also be engaged in the work that is ahead of them. So Colossians 3 verse 2 tells us to be serious about living in a certain way, in an effective, positive way, and that we need to act like it, not shuffle along, not to have our eyes down on the ground, but we need to be looking up and to be alert to what's going on above where Christ is, so that we can see things, we can see leadership from his perspective. And that's very, very important for us to be checked in at all times. The next factor is you are airworthy. Now, when you travel, I'm sure that every one of you believes that the aircraft you're traveling in is indeed airworthy, correct? We've heard lots of things recently about some mishaps going on with various aircrafts. Unfortunately, it is not that common, but it does happen. And on your journey to being an effective leader, you need to be airworthy because, let's face it, in order to be effective, all of your systems, just like all of the systems on an aircraft, have to be in tip-top condition. And as effective leaders, when we're fit to lead, we have to be in tip-top condition as well. Mind, body, and spirit. So very often as leaders, we can neglect some aspects of our systems, the mind, body, and spirit, and we're only focusing maybe on, getting the job done, but we neglect our health maybe. Maybe we neglect our relationships, our families, and we spend way too much time in the office. I'm sure none of you are guilty of any of that, right? But we need to make sure that we are balanced in our lives, in every area of our lives. And that's critical so that we can take off and we can get to our destination safely without falling short in any of those three systems, but mind, body, and spirit. We need to put in the work to make sure that we're healthy, that we are connected to Christ, and that we are well mentally and emotionally as well, and we can be there for our families. The next factor that's going to be important is to be able to remain seated and buckled up when you hit turbulence. Because as leaders, you know that things do not always go smoothly, right? They don't. We go sometimes from crisis to crisis, but we need to remain stable and buckled up. And this really has to do with managing our emotions, being able to manage our emotions. Now, as individuals, and especially as leaders, we have to understand how our brain works, how we can manage our emotions, and what is important and why it's important to take control of our emotions as leaders as we navigate through very uncertain waters at times and very uncertain situations. So being able to manage our emotions, understanding how we do that, is going to be very important. So it has been said, when you can't control what's happening, we have to challenge ourselves to control how we respond to what's happening. Has anybody ever felt so overwhelmed, so just, I mean, everybody's, coming at you, they want this, they want that, you've got a deadline, so much is going on, you're overwhelmed, and you can't think straight sometimes. That is because what's happening in our brain is our emotional brain gets overwhelmed and overactivates. And when that happens, it doesn't allow us to think straight, to use our prefrontal cortex, which is the part of our brain that is responsible for decision-making and assessing things and strategy. And so when we are overwhelmed in that sense, when there's turbulence all around us, we need to be able to pause. We need to be able to catch our breath, literally, so that that part of our brain that is fearful and is emotional doesn't overwhelm us and doesn't take over our thinking part of the brain. And that's the part of the brain that helps us actually to solve these problems. So we need to be able to calm down, to learn how we can calm ourselves down so that our higher level brain can actually come up with the solutions that we need to get us through the turbulent times. So that is a critical factor for effective leadership, to be able to remain seated and buckled up at all times. Number 8, the next factor that's really, really important is being able to manage a situation, whether you're sitting on the aisle, in the middle, or whether you have a window seat. Generally, very few people like to sit in the middle seat. How many of you like to sit in the middle seat? Is there anybody who loves the middle seat on an aircraft? Anybody?
No.
I think hardly anybody. Usually you want either a window seat or an aisle seat, right? And so, exactly. So, but the thing is, as a leader, sometimes you might have to sit in the middle seat and still function at your optimal level. So in the aisle seat, yes, you can maybe have a little bit more leg room, maybe you can exit quicker. But there are also pluses and minuses to all of those seating arrangements. So if you're on the aisle seat, or let's say if you have the corner suite, you can think of the corner suite being the aisle or the window seat. And people aspire to those places, that promotion. But it has its positives, but it also has its negatives too. Don't overestimate what's involved in being elevated to certain positions of leadership. There's great responsibility and a lot of stress. However, being in the middle seat or being content to work from a position that may not be so desirable has its benefits too, because it gives you a very different perspective from either sitting in that corner suite or at the window seat. And you need to be able to navigate whatever the circumstances are that you have to contend with. So don't be afraid when you have to encounter not the best of situations. You can still manage, and you should be able to manage, and you have to learn how to manage at any position that you are placed in. So there is a text, I just want to share that with you, and it comes from Romans 5, 3-5. And it says, "There's more to come. We continue to shout our praise even when we're hemmed in with troubles, with challenges, with high costs and not enough budget, with people leaving, and having to recruit new people, with things going wrong. These are all troubles that can hem us in. Because we know that hardship, distress, or pressure or trouble develops patience in us, and it forges character, hope, confidence, and assurance in us. So don't be afraid to get the middle seat on your leadership journey. You can still get to your destination, and you can learn, and you will learn some lessons along the way. The next factor that I want to share with you is, if you're an effective leader, if you're going to be an effective leader, you have to realize that you have no limits. There are no limits with God. There are no limits as an effective leader. We put limits on ourselves. We actually put limits on other people, but we don't have to. We don't have to. The sky is the limit. We are the only thing standing in our own way when it comes to leading. We can't be afraid. We have to know that we can do all things through Christ who gives us the strength. We can empower people, our teams, to understand that they too can do all things, because we're not doing it alone. If we're doing it in our own strength, then absolutely we're limited. But if we're doing our work, our service with God as our partner, there are no limits to what we can do. We can soar to the highest heights. So realize there are no limits at all. The next factor that's really important is you need to always have your carry-on with you. Now, have you seen those people who, when you're lining up to get on the plane, the airlines will tell you you can have one carry-on bag that's supposed to be a certain size and a handbag. But there are some people who are carrying huge carry-ons that you would think they should have checked in, right? And sometimes they get to the gate and they're told, "I'm sorry, that's too big, you can't carry that on." Don't be one of those people, but make sure that you have your carry-on. Now, the things that we tend to carry on are generally those things that are very valuable, the things that we would never want to lose, right? Because sometimes luggage that you check in can get lost. So the things that you tend to carry on with you are those things that are very important, that you do not want to be without when you get to your destination. correct? So what is it that you are carrying in your carry-on as a leader? What are the things that you have packed in your carry-on bag that you would not want to be without? I want you to think about who are the people, who are the mentors in your life that you would not want to do life without, that you would not want to lead without having their support, their advice, their guidance. What are the values that you would always want to carry with you in life, that you would not want to be without? What are your principles that you will not enter into business without, that you would not enter into a relationship without those principles? What's in your carry-on bag? Philippians 4:8 gives us some advice, I think, about the kinds of things that to be an effective leader, we would do well to put some of these things into our carry-on bags. And it says, I'd say to you, you'll do best by filling your minds, filling your carry-on bags, and meditating on the things that are true, noble, reputable, authentic, compelling, gracious, the best, not the worst, the beautiful, not the ugly, the things to praise, not the things to curse. Sometimes we have things in our carry-on bag as leaders, as people in our relationships that are not the best. They're not lovely. They're not good. But to be an effective leader, we may have to make some changes and look at what we are carrying with us along our leadership journey. What is in your carry-on today? And are there some things that you might need to take out of your carry-on bag as you journey to your destination as an effective leader? The next factor, almost there now, is you know how to use the F word, and that's F, as in, are you full of fear or are you full of faith? On your journey, any journey, if you're flying, many people are fearful. They don't like to fly, but they know they have to. Other people have faith. They don't have that fear. Or it could even be a combination. You have both fear, but you overcome that fear with faith and trust in God. And leadership, it's the same thing. You have to choose your F word. Is your F word going to be fear or is it going to be faith? What is your F word going to be? You know how to use it. And so we need to understand that whether our journey as leaders is smooth, turbulent, or otherwise, faith is going to build the confidence and the resilience that we need. We need to exercise that faith in Christ to get us through to that higher level so that we can be the leaders that we are called to be. And finally, the last factor, and importantly, you live and you know how to live at 37,000 feet as an effective leader. You'll know that. Now, why 37,000 feet? I'll tell you a story, and I think I'm going to let me just get out of here. Bear with me. I'll tell you a story. Some years ago, we lived in Canada and we had a house fire. It was quite traumatic, as you can imagine. And it was a Sunday. No. Yes, it was a Sunday. It was November. And we had a leak over one of the balconies. And so we had somebody come to the house to help repair it. Now, we left him to carry on to do what he was doing, and I was doing laundry downstairs. All of a sudden, I hear vaguely in the background what I think is the word fire. But I kind of dismissed it because that was the last thing on my mind. The third time I heard it, it was a bit louder and a little bit more urgent, and it was unmistakable. It was fire. So I left the laundry area. I began to walk up the stairs. As I did so, I saw black smoke, and I was like, oh my goodness, fire, that kind of fire, because I couldn't understand what kind of fire this would be. And so I rushed down. I told my husband that, I told him there was a fire and we needed to get out. And so we did. We stood outside in the rain and waited for the fire people to come. As we did, our neighbors' homes was also beginning to burn. The short story of that is our house burned, we left with the clothes on our backs, and we ended up just leaving with the clothes on our backs, basically. And we had to move to another location. Now, the location that we moved to was at a very high elevation, extremely high. So one day, and bear in mind, this was November, it was winter time, cloudy, dark, raining. But one morning I opened the blinds and it was bright sunshine, very bright sunshine. And I couldn't believe it because it was like, wow, this is incredible. And so I was going to church, I think, that morning. And as I did so, as I said, it was bright sunshine. But as I moved down the mountain, it was still bright. But as I got halfway down, all of a sudden, it went dark. There was no sunshine at all there. And I couldn't believe what was happening. It just suddenly went from light to darkness. And I heard a voice that said to me, the sun is always shining. And it took me a while to get my composure, because to me, that was a message from God saying that no matter what's going on in your life, no matter how dark, how challenging things are, the sun is always shining. I'm always shining. And it reminded me that when I fly, and when you fly, if it's raining when the plane is taking off and it's cloudy, it's dark, snowing, whatever the weather is happening, when you take off, have you noticed that when you get above, let's say 10,000 feet above the clouds, is it raining? No, I don't think so. It's sunny every time. When you are above the clouds, when you're flying, it's always sunny. Now, I have a friend who's a pilot, and he was telling me that 37,000 feet is the optimal altitude to fly at for pilots. And so, especially when you're doing a long haul flight, you might hear the pilot say, ladies and gentlemen, we're now flying at 37,000 feet. Have you heard that? I always hear that. And especially since he told me that that was the optimal altitude, I kind of listened for it more. But he said that's the optimal level. And when you think about it, you are definitely above the clouds at that level. And I want to say to you as leaders, when you are a leader and just, trying to be the best and the most effective leader that you can be, you have to have a different perspective. You cannot have what I call a low altitude perspective. You cannot have a mindset that is thinking low level. You cannot have a mindset that is negative, that's carrying baggage, that is not going to allow you to rise above the challenges of life. Your perspective needs to be at a high altitude. And that is what I call
Go to the
having,
dirty side. This is the clean side.
I'm sorry, having a 37,000 feet mindset. That is a mindset that's above the clouds, that sees things from a totally different perspective. Your vision is long range. It's not short range. It's long term. And so as an effective leader, I would strongly suggest that whatever you can do, whatever you need to do to elevate your thinking, to elevate your perspective, it needs to be at that 37,000 feet level, above the clouds, where the sun is always shining, where God resides. And that reminds us of the text that says, it reminds us to set our minds on the things above, not the lower things, but the higher things, the things that are not going to be corrupted, the things that you're not going to lose. Like, we lost everything when we had the house fire. You know, we can have a house today, we can have a job today, we can have a car today, but tomorrow we can lose all of those things. Your mind as a leader has to be on the higher things that are transcendent over time and circumstances. So having a 37,000 feet mindset is critical to effective leadership. And that's what I want for all of you today. So just in conclusion, I want to say to you, to be an effective leader, how many of those factors do you have? Are you fit to lead? Do you know where you're going? Are you willing to pay the price to get there? Are you willing to invest in yourself and not on yourself? And by that, I mean, sometimes people spend a lot of money on how they look, where they live, what they drive, but intellectually, they have not invested in their minds. They have not invested in personal development, in professional development. And so they're living at very low altitudes, but they look good. They live in a nice place. They drive a nice vehicle, but there's no substance there. Do they know the language? Do you know the language? What language do you use? What self-talk do you use for yourself and to others? Do you travel light? Are you carrying baggage? What kind of baggage? Are you carrying, baggage from your childhood? Or even things that have happened to you as an adult? What are you carrying? Some things you need to let go. You need to let go so you can rise to the occasion of effective leadership. Don't allow those things to weigh you down. Are you checked in or are you checked out? Do you have the documentation? And do you understand what your final destination needs to be? Are you airworthy? Are you taking care of all your systems, body, mind, and spirit? Do you exercise? Do you eat well? Do you meditate? Do you have positive thoughts? Do you do self-care? Or, excuse me, I should have got some water, I'm sorry. Or do you just spend all of your time at the office or on your laptop? You have to have balance to be an effective leader. Do you know how to remain buckled up in times of turbulence? You need to. Are you content? Are you able to navigate no matter what the situation is, whether you have an aisle, middle, or window seat? Or are you very rigid in your approach to life and to leadership? How flexible are you? Do you have to have the window seat? Do you have to have the aisle seat? Sometimes you might need to take the middle seat, the lower seat, the servant seat in your leadership. What's in your carry-on? Do you even have a carry-on? What are the important things in life for you as a leader? What should you be taking along on your journey? Who should you be taking along in your journey as a leader to guide you for inspiration? You know? And as I said, we need to be able to live at that higher elevation above the clouds, where the sun is always shining. So my wish for you today is that you are able to check off some of these things and live a higher life as an effective leader. Thank you. And I'm happy to take any questions that you may have at this time. Thank you.
Thank you, Sister Lauren, for that. There's a quotation, somebody, okay, I see some hands. I see Uriel. Can you take your unmute and ask a question? After that, we take Douglas.
Okay, so I wasn't asking a question. I was just kind of giving an ovation.
Yes.
Oh, I see. Okay.
Yes, I wasn't asking the question either. I just wanted to say thank you very much for the presentation. I thought that was very insightful. For those of us who are aspiring to be leaders, it was information that we all needed, that I personally needed. And I particularly like the one on the baggages, because I feel like sometimes we don't even know when we have baggages on us, right? It's sometimes it's just unconscious, and until we take a moment to reflect and ask ourselves very honest questions like, is this really necessary, or should we be concerned about these little things anymore, or can we just let go? Right. I mean, what's the point praying to God and saying, God, you know, I put my burdens on you, and then you're still concerned about that? Why? Like, then you're not trusting God anyway.
Absolutely.
So I really appreciate that a lot, and thank you so much. This is very helpful.
You're very welcome, and thank you for that comment, because you know, sometimes as leaders, I think there's a lot of pressure, right, on leaders, and we put pressure on ourselves and other people. You know, there's external and internal pressure, and so sometimes we think we have to be perfect, right? We think we need to be on top of everything. But the fact of the matter is, we're human beings. And we have the same struggles as everybody else, right? Some people may be experiencing problems in their family life, you know, with their children. But we wear the mask sometimes, and we don't acknowledge where we really are and what baggage we're carrying. So thank you for that comment.
Yes, I have a question. You talked about creating, and so a creating situation, how do you advise a leader to handle that?
To do what, sorry?
The creating situation.
Creating?
You said creating. You mentioned creating. Is it creating or creating?
I'm not sure.
Okay, you mentioned a situation where members of staff or people are disenfranchised. Quitting? Oh, was it quitting?
Gotcha. Yeah. Quiet quitting. Yes. Quiet quitting. You want me to talk about that?
Yes. So I was just saying, okay, how does an effective leader handle such a situation? A few minutes, because we need to round up now.
Absolutely. So sorry. Yes. So I think number one is awareness that it even exists, right? Because sometimes we may see people as part of our teams, or even for ourselves, that they're not engaged, they just do the bare minimal, and we think, oh, we might not even understand why they're not participating, why their work is not up to the standard, or why they have no interest, or why we don't have much interest. And it could be that they are, maybe they've got baggage, maybe they're carrying baggage that has not been resolved, and it's weighing them down, and so therefore they cannot be operate at their most optimal level. So I think awareness, number one, and being willing to actually engage people and engage ourselves to get to the bottom of what may be the cause of what they're why they're not engaged and why they have quietly quit. They're there physically, but emotionally they're not present.
Okay, thank you so much. I see Brother Douglas's hand up.
Yes. I mean, as I was just thinking and just reminiscing on all that you said, something did come to mind, and it's the issue or the topic on vulnerability. As leaders, right? There's always a very thin line between being vulnerable and still being an effective leader,
Yes.
and being vulnerable and not being taken advantage of, right? Could you just touch on those two lines a little bit?
Yes.
Give us some clarity.
Yes, I would say as a leader, the vulnerability starts within you acknowledging your own baggage, your own situation, your own things that you're dealing with. So there has to be honesty for yourself. Now, in terms of being vulnerable, I think I would say two levels to this. One, you can be vulnerable with your peers or people who are in your circle who are mentors to you. I think that's one level that will be very helpful. And then in terms of being vulnerable to teams that you, let's say, manage or supervise, I think just having that sense of humanity that can come across, should come across with a leader, from a leader who is vulnerable, and they recognize their humanity in you as a team member. Because some leaders do not operate as if they're human beings. They operate from a level that, oh, I'm better than you, I'm the boss, you do what I say. They have no compassion to what somebody is going through in their life. So I think the vulnerability comes through, and it may be that there's an opportunity for you to say, I understand. And then it may be appropriate to say or to share an experience that you may have had. And I think that's where wisdom and judgment is going to come into it as a leader, to know whether that's going to be the right time and place. But I don't think that there's anything wrong personally with being vulnerable with people in your team. It doesn't make you any less. I think it makes you more approachable. So I don't think that there's any shame in saying, that situation happened to me. I've been there. I understand. Because when people know that you've been there, they have a different level of respect for you.
Okay. Thank you so much. There is someone asking for the quotation on Colossians. If you can put that, the quote on the chat, that'll be very okay for the person asking that question. So I want to thank everyone for joining, and I want to welcome our brother Oposu. Forgive me if I didn't pronounce it correctly. He's joining us all the way from Ghana. And I'm going to ask Brother Douglas to please quickly tell, our friends who just joined us from Ghana what Transform Mind is all about. And we appreciate everyone who's joined also. So, Brother Douglas, are you able to talk?
Thank you, Brother Okezie. First, I want to once again just give my heartfelt, I would just say congratulations and well done to Madam Lorraine. I think I got your name right.
Yes.
Lorraine, thank you so much. The presentation was amazing, and we all need a little reality check to remind ourselves of the curveballs that life throws at us and how we navigate those. So thank you very much. To everybody else, I want to congratulate those who constantly join us every Tuesday. And for the newcomers, I want to welcome everybody. This is Transform Minds. We are a non-for-profit organization. We are very Christ-centered. And our vision statement is We envision a global community of business leaders at every level, united in promoting and implementing Christ-centered marketplace ministry. We believe that is our calling, but we also believe that we can be very effective in the marketplace by sharing our Christ-centered values. Our mission statement reads, is to train and equip through the power of the Holy Spirit, a global community of business leaders at every level to glorify God through fostering a Christ-centered approach in their personal and professional lives. We will emphasize regular fellowships in cohesive groups, prioritizing witnessing, excellence, mind renewal, which we have just done today, and servant leadership to consistently make a transformative impact in the marketplace and beyond. And so we will be having many programs, but Tuesday is our weekly mind renewal sessions where we have different speakers come on and speak to us. On Wednesday, I want to just also inform you, Wednesday, we have our prayer sessions. We are also very active in prayer. We believe that when, children of God come together and pray together, that we can move mountains. So we have our prayer session every Wednesday from 5 p.m. to 5:45 p.m. And that is handled by Pastor Fisaya Patade. But that's it for our vision and mission statement today. I want to just once again thank everybody for joining us. And I do hope that you will join us not just every Tuesday, but you will also join our WhatsApp community page where you can get regular updates on discussions that we have and future events that are coming up in the future. Thank you very much. Badokazie, back to you.
Thank you so much. So I see some people indicating that they want the slides. So I see Mr. Adioye, I see our brother from Ghana.
Yeah.
I see brother Mr. Wale Adioshun. I see Aramide Okikiolu. So I would also say that our presenter is also on the platform, on the WhatsApp platform. So you can send her a direct message on WhatsApp through the contacts, and she will just send you the link. And we can also, you'll find her, on the Transform Minds platform, WhatsApp platform, and you can just DM her. But we make note of the 4 people that I've indicated. So I want to thank everyone.
Casey, may I just say, sorry, I do have a handout that is available, will be made available to anybody who wants it, of this presentation and also the slides. And I do apologize that I wasn't able to share my screen appropriately. So I will be happy to provide you those slides and the handout on this. And as Brother Okezi has said, I'm with Fit to Fly. And basically our mission is to elevate the way people and organizations live, work and serve by elevating the way that they think. So thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Wright, over to you if you are able to talk where you are. Thank you. And please don't forget to join tomorrow's prayer meeting on the same platform. Thank you. Mr. Wright, please.
Yes, good evening, everyone. Thank you for attending. Thank you, Lauren, for the incisive presentation on leadership. Thank you. And thank you, Okeze. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you, Brother Douglas, and thank you all participants making us time to be with us this evening. God bless you all. Thank you. Please would appreciate your joining us tomorrow evening at 5 o'clock for the prayer, as has been emphasized. Thank you. God bless you all.
Thank you. See you tomorrow. God bless. Bye, everyone.
Bye. Thank you, sirs. Thank you, ma'am.
Bye. Thank you.
Good night, everyone. Cheers.
Bye. Cheers. Bye.
Thank you.
Cheers.
Bye.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Brother Okezi, Brother Wright.
Thank you, Cynthia. Thank you, Aderonke. Tosin Oladimeji, Opusu Agiri. Thank you.
You're joining us from Ghana.
Yes. Thank you, Okeze. Thank